Everybody loves a farmer, and so does the TDC Home and Building Depots. For the entire month of March, get 20% in savings on all agro products. Then, on the 26th of March, join us for the Farmers Market, where you can get your fresh produce direct from the farm to your table in both locations from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. TDC Home and Building Depots, supporting communities, supporting farmers. Terms and conditions apply. See stores for details.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Welcome to Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. Today is Saturday, March 26, 2022, and I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. Thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of Inside the News. Today we have a very interesting panel for you today, and I can tell you it promises to be a very interesting conversation right here on WINNFM 98.9. So we will be looking closely into the developments within the Team Unity Coalition and all that has been happening over the past few weeks. Comments made by the national leaders, or the leaders within that coalition, the Prime Minister Dr. Harris, Premier Matt Brantley, and Deputy Prime Minister Sean Richards. Right. So, welcome to Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. Now, the political climate in St. Kitts and Nevis is seemingly heating up with widely believed speculation that an election is on the horizon. And many have asked, in the midst of all of this, will Unity remain unified? Some have asked, is Dr. Harris the new target for PAM and CCM? And today on our panel, we have renowned political scientist Peter Wickham and well-known social commentator Dwyer Astefan. And they joined the panel today to speak on the developments within the Team Unity Coalition. I'm sure many of you have been following for the past few weeks the comments made by the three parties in that coalition, PLP, PAM, and CCM. And many of you continue to raise questions as to why. Many of you continue to raise questions as to what will happen in the coming months. Of course, the PAM convention was on the 13th of March, 2022, And before that convention, many of you were wondering what would be said. I would say perhaps some of you were shocked, some of you not so much, and some of you, that's what you expected. Well, today is the convention for PLP, and we are going to stand by to see what is going to come out of that. Good morning, Mr. Astafan, and thank you so much for joining us here on Inside the News. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. It's been a long time since I've been here.
Awesome. And we have joining us very shortly Mr. Wickham. He will be joining us via Zoom, and we're going to get right into the discussion. So, Mr.
I'm actually here already.
Okay, Mr. Wickham is on the line. Good morning, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Good morning, and also good morning to my good friend, Stefan. Good to be with you again. It's been a long time since we've chatted.
Yep, nice seeing you. Nice hearing you.
Good.
Awesome. So let's get right into the discussion. As I said earlier, we're here to talk about the developments within Team Unity, developments over the past 2-3 weeks, or since the PAM convention on Sunday, 13 March. And of course, many people have been asking, what will become of Unity? Will Unity remain united? Of course, there has been a lot of strong public opinion surrounding this matter, and many people have been saying, well, perhaps an election is near. Some say that's just, political talk, and that is not going to happen. But it is for us to see what is going to come out of all of these developments coming from Team Unity. Mr. Asifan, can we get your take on, in a nutshell, what has transpired thus far over the past few weeks in Team Unity? And if you were to give this, let me say, a topic or a theme, what would you describe this as? Well, what's happening in Team Unity, that is.
Well, what we are seeing now is not something that just started. Holding a coalition together is more often than not a very difficult proposition. And I think it is Peter Wickham himself, if I recall correctly, who said after the last elections that perhaps one of the major accomplishments of Timothy Harris for the first term was to have kept the coalition together. Mm-hmm. It's not easy, even in the best of circumstances. But this has not been the best of circumstances in terms of people seeing things from the same page, in terms of people's communications and trust and carrying out their internal promises. And a number of other things have taken place to deepen the distrust and to challenge the fabric of the arrangement. So what we've been seeing recently really has been a manifestation of a breakdown in the arrangement, and people at the highest levels venting almost unfiltered their positions, their feelings, and so forth. And in my opinion, while anything is possible in politics, they say politics is the art of the possible. In my opinion, it is going to take a miracle to mend this coalition together and see it running as a coalition as it did in the last 2 elections. And if all of that happens, seeing it succeed as a coalition, I don't think the present arrangement will continue. Even if the agreement is reached to increase the amount of money that is to be paid to Nevis in their ongoing argument about their fair share, I think there are too many issues, and the levels of distrust have reached an irreversible point.
Now, there are many supporters within Team Unity that are of the view that this can be fixed. There are some supporters that are calling for all of this political spat to end. There are some that want it to continue. And there's some that are saying, hey, guys, let's put the differences aside. We still have about 3 years to go before the next general election. Now, Mr. Wickham, what is your take on the recent developments? And do you think it is possible that Unity can make it to the next general election, which is constitutionally due in 2025?
Well, I mean, there's very little light between the opinions of myself and Dwyer on this matter. And I think, as has often happened in the past, Dwyer's analysis is spot on in terms of the key issues. I mean, coalition politics in the Caribbean has been fraught with difficulty. You look at the UNC in Trinidad and Tobago. Interestingly enough, the Unity Labour Party was a coalition initially, and it has strengthened. But the history of long-term coalitions in the Caribbean is a tragic one. And in a sense, by lasting 5 years, Team Unity has done well. My expectation is that it could have continued and done well. But there was, as Brian said, there was a breakdown in relation to trust. Can this trust be rebuilt? I also have my doubts, but they say that in politics anything is possible, and it may very well be possible that it could be done. There are two key issues. One is the question of the increase to NEVIS, which I think technically speaking can be resolved with, one could say, an objective third party saying, how much money is there in the first place that needs to be divided. And then you may find that what NEVIS has received is actually closer to the fair share. But then that's a question of opinion. And then thirdly, the other point is this whole question of leadership succession. And I get a sense that there is a strong belief on some quarters that if Dr. Harris is able to serve out this term, then he will want another. And this is where the breakdown takes place. But if those two issues can be resolved, if trust can be rebuilt, it's perhaps not unreasonable to think that this can happen. What I think is the key issue here is the PAM aspect of it. I think CCM is probably less, wants to say significant in terms of the way forward. I think that to me, PAM has always been critical in determining that it was willing to put its leadership ambitions on hold for 10 years with the assumption that it will continue. That has now broken down. And I think that really is the Achilles heel of this whole thing, that unless PAM is on board with this coalition and this coalition remaining, it falters. What is the critical issue here is that the Prime Minister has, one could say, this golden ticket where he can call an election at any point in time. If PAM moves against him, if the coalition partners move against him and they try to take him down in terms of a vote of no confidence, he can call an election the next day. After that, what happens? He has been a minister for 15 years. He's been served as Prime Minister. He can either continue in Parliament, which he probably will be likely to win his seat, or alternatively, he can ride off into the sunset. My sense is that the politics of St. Kitts and Nevis is such that regardless of how it's spun, Dr. Harris will be a key player in the politics of the future of this country, whether he is Prime Minister or not. That basically is his golden ticket, the fact that he can say, I can call an election and I can create a situation in which you may not very well become Prime Minister, which is perhaps the biggest threat he can give to Shaw Richards, assuming that he believes that Labour will be in a position to challenge PAM on the mainland in the event that an election is called. PAM, of course, has superior strength in terms of numbers, and that it can use to bring down this current administration. The question is whether those numbers are sufficient to allow it to form an administration in association with CCM, or alternatively, whether it would have to work to win back those seats. The question is whether now or later, PAM has that power essentially to determine whether they want the government to fall now or whether they're going to give Dr. Harris up until the 30 years. If Dr. Harris feels threatened, he can precipitate a situation where an election is called now. What I think would be great for them is if Dr. Harris were to agree to give the leadership to an alternative person within the Team Unity construct, which is entirely possible if he agrees. And that would certainly make the idea of a handover more smooth. So I think that those are the bargaining chips he had. He can call an election now and punish everyone. He can agree to hand over leadership at some future point in time, essentially locking in the possibility of a PAM leader emerging as prime minister. And then on the PAM side, they could say, well, look, I could threaten you with destruction now, which means that you will no longer be prime minister. Or alternatively, I believe that I have the power to actually win it on my own and emerge if an election is called. So those are the combinations and permutations, but generally the lay of the land as outlined by Dwyer, I have no difficulty with at all. And I think that that's the reality that we're facing. I also want to say that I thought that the manner in which both parties are presenting these issues is not the best moment. And certainly within politics, it's always better to have conversations behind doors. The fact that they're having these conversations in the public domains means that there's a breakdown of not only trust, but communication behind the ground. And I think that there's no polite way of saying it. Communication has clearly broken down. So when you're shouting at someone through the press, clearly you haven't been able to speak to them privately. And I think that that's unfortunate, because that one would think that that could have been avoided.
All right, thank you. Now, understanding that PAM and CCM would have the power in terms of demanding that Prime Minister Harris steps down as the head of the coalition or as Prime Minister, what does that mean for the individual parties within unity? So let's say there is to be an election now, this year. What does that mean for PLP, for PAM, for CCM?
You're asking me or Dwyer?
Sorry, you, Mr. Wickham.
Me?
Yes.
I really don't know. I think that the expectation is that they could all preserve the status quo. I have good reason to believe that they could each preserve the status quo, which means that you would emerge with a situation pretty much as it was, and then the parties can reconfigure and they can form a government on their own. I think that that would be the hope. As to whether or not that will happen, I really don't know. My big concern in all of this is that the level of predictability that I was able to bring to the last election, which is one that I would say was probably Cadra's best election in St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of being able to be reliably predict the outcome. I can't necessarily bring to a future election simply because the overseas vote is a factor. And I've complained, not complained because it's not my place to complain. I've spoken excessively about the impact this overseas vote has had. It is clear that Labour commands the overseas vote in a way that's far superior to either PAM or CCM or anyone else really. And once that overseas vote is a factor, it's going to change things. So my thing is, the expectation is that the status quo would hold. But now that the borders are open and people can come in and vote, it's entirely possible that a lot of the marginal seats, the Labour could clean those up, and they could emerge with a stronger Labour group, which means that Labour is either in a position to lead on its own or alternatively in coalition with someone else. So that's a factor that I think that it makes it difficult, certainly for me as a pollster, to be able to say with any conviction what I think will happen. And I've always been a bit hesitant in terms of predicting the outcome in St. Kitts and Nevis simply because the overseas vote is not a predictable vote.
All right. What about you, Mr. Astafan?
Well, I am thinking that the return of the status quo, the point that Peter is making, is premised on the presumption that the parties in the coalition will have found a way to reconcile. And if not the three of them, because I have been told by people at very high levels in PAM and CCM that they are finished with Harris. Finished with Harris. It doesn't mean that CCM and PAM would not be able, between them, to gather 6 seats and form a coalition. It doesn't even mean that they would be unable to form 5 seats and form a minority government, because you don't know the disposition of the other seats and the people who gain those seats. I would see virtual impossibility. Remember, politics is the art of the possible. But I would see virtual impossibility in the proposition that the People's Labour Party which was deliberately named to include the word labor, so that it could provide in the minds of people almost as a knee-jerk response, an affinity to labor in order to attract labor supporters without thinking that it might be something different. But I would have a great difficulty visualizing that becoming a reality, a joining of PLP and the Labour Party. I would have great difficulty with that. I take Peter's point on the overseas vote, and again, I don't have any scientific data before me. Peter, of course, is the gatherer of the data and the interpreter of the data, and I don't know if he is engaged to provide services, his very exceptional services. He has a good reputation. I don't know if he is engaged with or on behalf of any of the present players in the thing. If he's not, I would have to speak to Peter personally, because I might want to engage him to do a survey. I am looking to get a survey done. So we could speak about that offline, Peter. But even in the present situation, based on the dynamics that I observe on a daily basis, with the obvious breakdown in trust and the communication, as Peter said, in the coalition arrangement, and in fact, the deepening of it on a daily basis, and people coming out from the bellies of these different parties and saying, no, this is wrong, we have to stop this. We have to go to the people and have a new government elected. This is untenable, this is toxic, the people are suffering. I believe out of the present circumstances, there is the potential for the Labour Party to win enough seats to form the government. Now, I am personally supporting the Labour Party in this election because I think it holds promise that this one made but didn't keep. Team Unity made promises that they didn't keep to each other. That is why one of the reasons they're bickering, the Charlestown Accord and the Treaty of National Unity, are promises broken, fundamentally broken. But if the Labour Party can move into that position, and it is for them to make the best of it, it is for them. If they can move into that position, what I would like to see, and regardless of who forms the government, I really want to see us move to a new culture where if your party loses, so Peter runs against me, Peter's party wins, but not in the constituency in which I run. So I am the representative, but I represent the opposition. If Peter is my opponent or the prime minister or whoever should reach out to me and say, look, you are elected by the people. Let us see how we could work together in harmony, in mutual respect, in the best interest of the country. You know, one of the things the prime minister said yesterday in a public address from the office of the prime minister, promoting his party, which to me is filled with impropriety. A political party address on the premise of, under the pretext of a national address, and saying that one of the reasons Team Unity was formed was to bring an end to political tribalism. And Team Unity right now is the manifestation of the most grievous political tribalism we've experienced in the modern history of the country. And he is the chief architect of it because he has undermined his partners. He has lied to his partners. He has not been fair to them. And they are not blameless because, for example, if Mr. Brantley is saying, I have not been getting my fair share. He has 3 seats. Harris has 2. Pam has 4. Can you not tell me, Mr. Cornelius, that the 4 Pam seats, if over the years they have so strongly identified with fair share and honoring the commitments in these documents, would they not have ensured that the fair share is actually dispensed? So, by his inaction, but it's one of two things. If Mr. Richards and his team pushed for Mr. Brantley's island, Nevis, to get their fair share, they failed. And if they didn't push, it would mean that they were not sufficiently motivated. So they too can be accused of partners who have failed in the arrangement.
Richards said in the statement on Wednesday that Team Unity has failed in its promise to CCM and to the island of Nevis in terms of the Charlestown Accord. Now, the point that you made, Mr. Astafan, very interesting in the sense that in this coalition, you have the People's Action Movement, which has the most seats in the coalition, 4 seats. So the argument that some have made, or the point that some have made, is that PAM has 4 in this construct. Why is it with the 4, PAM could not argue for the Charlestown Accord to be materialized?
And not only the Charlestown Accord, you know, Mr.
And
Kennedy.
other things in the...
For example, the Treaty of National Unity, when they said, with regard to constitutional reform, safeguards against the abuse of power, government power, to put constitutional reform, now they, since 2020, they've had 9 seats, 9 elected members, which is more than you need
Precisely.
to amend the Constitution in areas that don't need referenda. Freedom of information, integrity in public life, eradication of corruption in government, right of recall for non-performing parliamentarians, fixed date elections for national and local elections, mechanism for a referendum process, term limits for the Prime Minister, conduct and so forth. All of the parties to this have breached this. This is a commitment they made more to the people of the country as part of the new governance culture that they were introducing. So I think we need to be careful, and we need to be honest with each other and not point the finger solely to Timothy Harris, because he has 2 seats out of 9. And in addition, here is something that the PAM and the CCM members of cabinet can do and could have done a long time ago. To place pressure on Harris, because if Sean Richards is saying that he has no idea as to how much money is in the fund, he has no idea of passports, no idea of anything. So he has no idea of whether fair share or not. Recently discovered, no idea. Those numbers and the estimates. But even if they aren't, if the 4 PAM candidate members and the 3 CCM members of the cabinet make a decision, because they're the majority of cabinet, that an investigation is done, an examination of the CBI program and of the development bank, and a report must be made to cabinet on both within 3 months. Do you know how much pressure that would put on the Prime Minister? But they've allowed him to put the pressure on them by ignoring their pleas, and in some cases, they're not making the pleas or making the cases that they should make. They're not performing at the level that you would expect people elected to perform at that level, and even more so, aspiring to be Prime Minister. They've not demonstrated the will and the strength to get the job done. And I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. But clearly, quite apart from the internal friction, from the communication and trust issues, there has been a fundamental failure to deliver on the good governance agenda, which must be the foundation on which every other facet of governance takes place. And that has not happened.
Guys, it is 11:30. We'll take a break to give a shout out to the sponsors. And I have here some clips that I want to play for you and, of course, the listeners of WINNFM 98.9. We have a commentary from Callistra Farrier of Carib Update from the Narrative, I think that is in Grenada, providing some commentary on the developments within Team Unity. I also did some research and I found the clip with Dr. Sharon Ann Gopal McNichol in 2021 speaking at the convention of the People's Labour Party when suggestion was made that the current Prime Minister should consider a third term. Stick and stay, we'll take this short break and we will be right back with some more Inside the News.
Enjoy the convenience of getting all your documents in one place. At the TDC Copy and Print Center on 4th Street in Basse-Terre, we do just that. We offer document formatting, graphic design, and copy and print services. Our team of professionals truly understand all your needs, whether it be administrative, professional, academic, or personal. You bring it, we deliver it with quality every time. Visit the TDC Copy and Print Center today in the TDC Mall on 4th Street in Basse-Terre or call 465-2511. Your copy and print specialists are waiting to serve you.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go round.
Welcome back to Inside the News. So we'll head right into that clip from Callistra Farrier, providing some commentary on the current developments within Team Unity. And this is entitled, Should Prime Minister Timothy Harris Resign? Have a listen.
And finally, the politics of St. Kitts and Nevis deserves some following amidst interesting developments there. In a true and genuinely democratic society where leaders defer to democratic principles, Prime Minister Timothy Harris, who would have on Monday called in his coalition partners and offered his resignation. After weeks of grumbling of how the three-way coalition was being handled and suggestions that Prime Minister Harris, though his party is the weakest link in the so-called Team Unity, had been ignoring the concerns of both the People's Action Movement and Concerned Citizens Movement caucus, he was effectively politically indicted 2 weekends ago. At the convention of Palm, we had its leader Sean Richards, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and the leader of the Concerned Citizens Movement, Mark Brantley, the nation's foreign minister, openly calling out Harris in public and in front of his face. Thanks to COVID, it was hard to see his reaction, and he sat in the audience under a mask, maybe fuming or maybe plotting his next move. That might become clearer when his People's Labour Movement holds its own convention this coming weekend. But it is absolutely clear that the trust among the Team Unity government has been broken, perhaps irreparably so, though they say that politics has a morality of its own. Harris, his admirers say, is a survivor. He wiggled out of his confrontation with Denzel Douglas when he was in Old Labour, only to land as Prime Minister a couple of years later. He came into Team Unity talks with two major parties, virtually as a Lone Ranger, and ended up being the leader of the entire thing. After Team Unity was elected for a second term last year, Harris' People's Labour Party only had 2 of the 9 seats controlled by the coalition. By the time Team Unity was elected, some of its partners had already gone so sour on him that only Richards attended his swearing-in. If you read it through the lines, Harris's partners have accused him, without openly calling his name, of a breach of trust, operating in bad faith, and of systematically undermining his own partners in their respective constituencies. Some outsiders think that it is remarkable that he has been allowed to get away with all the perceived sins he has committed. What transpired at the event on Sunday was perhaps unprecedented in the modern political history in the Eastern Caribbean. Harris was publicly tried, but he did not plead. His critics say he openly covets a third term, something that will go against their initial unity agreement. The Prime Minister has insisted that he has told no one that, calling the speculation a distraction. But interestingly, he has stopped short of categorically saying that he would not. Harris's own defense statement hopefully will come this weekend in what promises to be another amazing chapter in this political essay that is being written in real time. Don't expect Harris to resign or to give his partners the opportunity to reconfigure the unity construct. There are not many PJ partisans in the region. Politicians in the Caribbean do not quietly go away. But the St. Kitts Nevis leader now has two choices: be magnanimous and give in to his partners, or remain stubborn, defiant, and threaten the complete unraveling of team unity in which every one of them will be losers. It is clear the current situation is untenable. What is not clear is how Harris will maneuver out of this one. Whatever happens, the buck will stop with him, and he won't be able to transfer the blame to others. If the truth be told, he is between the devil and the deep blue sea, and that's a difficult place to be, while trying to manage at the same time both your ego and your pride.
That was Calista Faria, from the Carib Update in Grenada, providing some commentary on the developments within Team Unity, basically commenting on whether Prime Minister Harris should resign. We're going to continue the conversation right here on Inside the News. Mr. Wickham, what is your take on what was said by Ms. Faria?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say a couple of things about what my friend Dwyer said also. But I mean, Calista Faria's analysis is hers. It's not an unreasonable analysis in large part, but there's an absence of an understanding of the political realities on her part. A political leader in Dr. Harris's case doesn't resign. I mean, it's just not something that's going to happen. And I would invite her to identify if it be the point in time in history when a similar situation has occurred and the leader has resigned. I don't see that part, but a lot of the other points that she made about the breakdown of trust and whatnot is entirely reasonable. I was more keen though to discuss some of the points that Dwyer made, and the question of the constitutional reform not going through. I agree entirely that one of the important contributions that Team Unity was to make was to do constitutional reform. And some electoral reform as well, the overseas vote being one of the key points. And it certainly failed in both of those regards. I believe if you ask Dr. Harris, he would tell you it was certainly not for want of trying. We had a measure going to Parliament to limit the Prime Minister to 2 terms, and that one failed because Labour didn't support it. And I think the reality of St. Kitts and the fact that it has to go to referendum mean that any meaningful change in terms of the constitutional arrangements would probably have failed with Dr. Douglas as leader of the opposition, because he would not find a way clear to support any of them. So perhaps Dr. Harris is saying, look, I'm not giving myself the thing of going to be defeated in Parliament because these things are not going to work out. But I agree that it's unfortunate that those kinds of measures were not brought. And my advice certainly to him would have been, you bring the measures, and if they fail in Parliament, fine. But it can't be said that you have not tried. But I do agree that that was a lot of the work that they were expected to do, and none of it has been done. With regard to the fair share issue, it is not as simple as people may think. And I think that even if you had a CDB team come in and say, okay, what is a fair share? The question is, how do you determine what is paid to Nevis that is part of that fair share? Because it's not only in terms of understanding what the quantum that was taken in is, we have to also understand how it was spent. And certainly if you look at the practices and the labor, many of which have been continued under Team Unity, the resources from that citizenship by investment were used as part of your continuous budget support. So let's say, for example, government pays salaries or double salary in Nevis. Is that not part of the contribution? Would that have to be calculated as part of the contribution? And those are the kinds of questions that are really at the core of this thing. So in fairness, it's being oversimplified, and people are saying, once we find out how much it is, we find out whether Labour whether Nevis got a fair share. The reality, however, is determining what is supposed to be part of that payment has been a challenge. Our scholarships included, public servant salaries are included. Anytime there's a shortfall and salaries have to be made up, and there's a contribution made from the central budget in St. Kitts, is that part of it? Remember, it's a federal arrangement, which means that there are technically two separate governments, and there are many instances in which payments have been made, and there is questions and confusion as to whether or not those are supposed to be part of what is that fair share, or whether it is not to be included. And I think that that is a complexity that a lot of people are not beginning to appreciate, and certainly when that is sorted out, if that is sorted out, there will be further disagreements regarding, what was supposed to be included in the first place. So once we understand the quantum, and we say, okay, they got 5 million, the quantum is 10 million, we still have to understand payments that were made, are those to be included? And I think that that's another part of the issue that comes up.
Interesting analysis, Mr. Wickham. Dwight, you wanted to add something?
The calculus is difficult. We know the expenses would need to be worked out. That's only reasonable. So I don't think the calculus is expensive. Is complicated. I really don't. I think what happened here is very much like the constitution of our country. The negotiation of our national constitution contained a lot of transactional attitudes rather than aspirational attitudes. For example, Section 110 in the Constitution, which deals with sharing of tax revenue.
Yes.
It's just tax revenue, not all revenue, tax revenue. Somehow, in the recesses of my mind, Mr. Cornelius and Peter and listeners, I don't think the then PAM government were particularly committed to that provision. And I don't think that provision is likely, in the continuing political culture we have, to be ever given full and frank effect. The Labour Party in 1982 at the Constitutional Conference in England asked for integrity legislation, integrity provisions to be inserted into the Constitution, and they were told by a politician on the other side, no way, if the people want to elect scamps, let them do so. The Labour Party also proposed the right to work as a fundamental constitutional right, and that too was opposed. The arrangements and giving Nevis the right to secede, rather than giving St. Kitts the right to secede as well. The Labour Party had a paper in response to it called In Place of Strife, and it did not sign the constitutional instruments. These two documents, the Treaty of National Unity and the Charlestown Accord, are, in my opinion, and I said this respectfully, documents that were done with some participants having great expectations and other participants agreeing to insert those provisions to placate, to assuage, to allay, and to deceive, but with never having the intention to fully implement them. And this is why you see over the years the skepticism, the uncertainty, and now the deep distrust have taken place. So I don't see, once you have the will, and what I would suggest further, because while these agreements, if you will, are between political parties, I would have preferred that they be given the force of formality by adopting them as part of the cabinet record, as being adopted by the cabinet, and presenting them as resolutions to the parliament,
Right.
and adopted by the parliament as part of the law of the land. That was never done. And I think that should have been done. It may not be too late, but it may be too late in terms of trying to patch up. I also want to respond to something about the last election that wasn't mentioned the COVID was also a factor.
Yeah.
Because the government had control of the game. And it is well known that functions held by the incumbents did not observe the protocols as they ought to have. Secondly, the number of people who got citizenship certificates of St. Kitts and Nevis through fake marriages between 2015 and 2020, I would hazard a bet and said unprecedented in the history of the country. You remember this guy, Hush Puppy?
Mm-hmm.
And Hush Puppy didn't go the citizenship by investment route. He's a rich man. He went by the marriage route, which is the poor man's route.
Right.
You get people from neighboring islands in the region who go that route. They don't know the person. They pay $4,000 or $5,000. They become married. It goes, and the Ministry of National Security got wind of it even before. But people were getting their citizenships and going and registering, and a lot of fake marriages. And the St. Christopher and Nevis Citizenship Act provides the minister with the authority of denying an application where he believes that the purpose of the citizenship is not in pursuance of a genuine marriage, but instead to get citizenship, and none of that was done. And the amount of goodies that were handed out. So all of those things led significantly to the result at what we got in 2020. I'm not making a moral judgment. I'm trying to make an objective analysis of what transpired then. And if those things, and what I'm being told is that even today, for the PLP conference, people are going to be encouraged to wear orange shirts and to sign up to join the PLP. That's not a sin. And being given promises that you will get a loan and you'll get this and you'll get that. Now, when you start to take government resources as a politician and try to make favors to people out of them so that you can make personal or political gain, then you are offending, you're abusing your public office, and you're committing offense against the Integrity in Public Life Act. But the Integrity in Public Life Act is not fully operationalized. So that the transactional nature of these elections and the materialistic attitude that seems to become embedded in our people are really making a mockery of elections. And if it continues this way, you could already start kissing democracy goodbye. The people really need to stand up and say, we can't continue like this because we lose. Corruption causes the people to lose. Listen, just give me another minute, if I may.
Sure.
Peter, bear with me for a minute. Mayor Motley is trying a thing in Barbados with the fuel levy to lower the price of gasoline. The government here should be a main focus. You know, freight has gone up enormously globally because of the supply chain problems,
Yes.
and now the problems in Ukraine. When you bring in goods and you apply the tariffs to these goods, you add the tariffs to the freight, correct?
Right.
The cost of the good, the insurance for the passage from point A to St. Kitts or Nevis, and the freight. And then you put duty on all of those, and you put custom service charge on all of those, and you put whatever you have to put on all of those. And then when all of those are tallied, you add VAT. So VAT is calculated on taxes. What I am suggesting, and the idea came to me from a young man called Larry Vaughan from Keys, reduce the pressure on the public, the consumer. Instead of charging tariffs based on the astronomically increased freight charges. For example, a year ago, a container from Beijing to Bastia might have been 7,000. It's now 22. That gets factored into the pricing.
Right.
So go back to the 7,000 and tarify the shipment based on the 7,000 rather than the 22. so you could leave more money in people's hands. The government might earn less money on each transaction, but with more money being in people's hands, more money will spin in the economy, and the spin will include the government. So you bring in relief. These are top issues that we need to be considering. The threats to our economic citizenship program. And there are no signs that the government is addressing these issues. The prison, which will gain a Chinese company 500 to 600 million US dollars, money which should belong to the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. The Leclanche solar plant, the Swiss people who are being given a contract to build a solar plant to sell solar power to the government of St. Kitts, which in turn will sell it to the people. The Swiss company is a company that's smaller than Horsfords and TDC and Rams. And they had a bad record over the last 8 years. The people of St. Kitts and Nevis could have put money in as equity, and institutions put money in as debt, loans, and built that facility and sell the energy to Skelec and become the owners of the company. So you're not only buying from your own company, you're paying for electricity every month, but at the end of the year you get a dividend. That is how you empower people, rather than letting all of that money bleed out to the Chinese, $500 to $600 million. That should be our money. And you could do a lot with it. This Pay for Peace program can be improved so much, and people get more. The hospitals, the schools, everything. The present government is marginalizing the people of St. Kitts and Nevis when it should be empowering them. And for that reason alone, quite apart from it having become a dysfunctional and toxic, disunited group of persons, not even a group, these other issues are sufficient for the electorate to ensure that they are not deceived once again. Thanks for giving me the time to make that point.
That is another part of the conversation that I wanted to, or a question that I wanted to ask. With all of what is happening now with Team Unity, questions have been raised by members of the public as to whether this would affect how the government operates, in terms of the government paying attention to the real bread and butter issues, paying attention to the increase in fuel price, paying attention to what is happening in Russia and Ukraine, paying attention to day-to-day issues that the small man are worried about. So we have about 5 minutes before we take a break for the headline news, and then we come back after to continue the conversation. But that is what I wanted to touch on. Do you guys think that what is happening now within Team Unity, would it affect how government operates in the country? I also have the clip, as I mentioned earlier, from the Dr. Sharon Gopal McNichol, where she was suggesting that the Prime Minister should consider serving a third term. But we'll get into that for the second hour, and of course we will open the phone lines to hear from our callers. Before we take the break for the headline news, Peter, you wanted to comment on anything that Mr. Asifan shared?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would encourage Brian not to go off onto the other non-political aspects of, these things, because the politicking part of it, where we're looking at which party is better to form the government, is a slightly longer conversation. For example, I don't think you can compare what Prime Minister Modi is doing in Barbados with what Prime Minister Harris is not doing in terms of the cost of energy. One of my concerns over the years has been the fact that St. Kitts and Nevis does not have income tax. Barbados does, and it makes us having income tax in Barbados makes it easier for us to do things with the fuel levy, because fuel is not as much an important part in terms of government's revenue as it is in St. Kitts and Nevis. In St. Kitts and Nevis, your entire revenue for running the state is based on consumption taxes and fuel taxes and whatnot, and I don't know that Prime Minister Harris has a latitude. But then if we're going to have a conversation about tax policy, that's where the conversation needs to go, as opposed to...
But we have income tax in St. Kitts, Peter. You hear?
I wasn't aware that you did. I always understood that Dr.
Yeah.
Morris's position was that there's no income tax.
No. Well, that's not a correct position.
So
In the
what is it that you pay income tax on?
In the early 1980s, the then and new PAM government abolished personal income tax.
Right.
That came, of course, straight from people's salaries. The percentage of people in the workplace at that time who were paying personal income tax was minuscule, but it sounded very attractive.
No,
So-
but the point is, do you have it now?
Yeah, I'm coming to it.
But you gotta come quickly because they have to go to a break.
Okay, well, I can't promise I'll come
I was
quickly.
under the impression that you don't have income tax now.
No, there's
because-
something called the Housing and Social Services Levy, which is a direct tax against your
Yeah,
income.
it's not income tax.
It is.
Well, technically it isn't. But anyhow,
Technically
that's
it
my
isn't?
basic
But
thinking that-
we'll catch up after the break for the headline news. We're out of time. Very good conversation we had this morning. For those of you who are just tuning in, you're listening to Inside the News here on WINN FM 98.9, and I have here with me today social commentator Dwyer Astefan, a former government minister, and of course on the line we have political scientist Peter Wickham, and we are commenting on the developments within Team Unity over the past few weeks, of course, coming out of the PAM convention, that the comments that were made there and made since, that too has, I would say, added fuel to the fire. And of course, this afternoon is the PLB convention, and many people are looking forward to, what may come out of that as it relates to the future of Team Unity, the health status, if I may, of Team Unity. But we will be following that very closely. We will take this break, and when we come back, we will continue Inside the News here on WINN FM 98.9. I've been your host for the first hour, Devon Cornelius, but please stick and stay. We will continue the discussion right after the headline news.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and National Bank.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a local reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness, it's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoy the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king. Please drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Did you know that National Bank offers very favorable terms and low interest rate to switch your home mortgage? Our in-house legal department will process your mortgage in a jiffy and free of cost. Switch your home mortgage now and get a peace of mind knowing that we are here for you. National Bank, always here.
With the Win Headline News, I am Devon Cornelius.
And I am Kevon Brown.
Making the headlines. St. Kitts Music Festival returns after 2-year hiatus.
Traffic flow temporarily changed around Patsy Aller's playing field to facilitate a PLP convention.
High school students, businesses participate in career fair on Nevis.
The government in Barbados is set to increase the tax on sugar-sweetened drinks, carbonated soft drinks, juice drinks, sport drinks, and more from April 1st, 2022, and local manufacturers in the country have complaints about the hike. However, the government says there will be no ease in the sugar tax. Internationally, Yemen's Houthi rebels have launched a series of attacks on targets in Saudi Arabia. No injuries have been reported, but oil storage facilities have been damaged in a barrage of drones and at least one ballistic missile.
The details and more straight ahead. The St. Kitts Music Festival returns in grand style, promising an unforgettable experience with a solid lineup of local, regional, and international artists performing varying genres of music such as reggae, soca, dancehall, and R&B. St. Kitts and Nevis's top artists such as Vinyl Powell, Byron Messiah, Dejour, Highlight, iMark, Ruckus HE, and popular bands like New Vibes, Small Axe, and Grandmasters are on the lineup. Patrons can also expect performances by regional musical legend Beres Hammond, reggae artist Christopher Martin, Pop Khan, Bungie Garlin and Fair and Lyons, Destra, Nadia Batson, Lyrical, Voice Massacre, Sean Paul, Maxi Priest, Anthony B., Chanel Muir, and Jada Kingdom. And the international performances are by Ashanti, Whale, Keisha Cole, and Rotimi. The announcement came at a music festival release party held Friday, March 25th, 2022 at the St. Kitts Royal Hotel. Chairman of the St. Kitts Music Festival Committee, Damian Hobson, confirmed that the event will be open to all fans regardless of their vaccination status, and the ticket prices will remain at 135 EC per night. The 2022 edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival will take place at Kim Collins Stadium, beginning at 8 nightly from Thursday 23rd to Saturday 25th June.
Today, March 26th, is the People's Labour Party's 6th convention at the Patsy Aller's playing field, and the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has imposed some traffic restrictions. The restrictions will be in effect from 10:30 a.m. to midnight. A release from the traffic department stated that several changes would come into effect to ensure the smooth flow of traffic around the Patsy Aller's playing field in St. Johnson's Village, Basseterre. Traffic will only flow in the following directions: north to south along Wrigley Avenue, south to north on Boone Avenue, and west to east on Infirmary Road. That's the road with the Old Baptist Church. Limited parking will be permitted. However, anyone attending the convention is asked to park in Greenlands Park. Security will be provided.
Hundreds of young people participated in a career fair hosted at the Cultural Village in Nevis on Friday, March 25th, 2022. Organized by the Nevis Youth Careers Expo NYCE, the career fair featured a number of businesses from across the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. A wide cross-section of businesses were represented, including media, performing arts and culture, law, culinary arts and hospitality, tourism, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, law enforcement, fire and rescue, banking and health, among others. Students of the Nevis Sixth Form College, the Charlestown Secondary School and the Gingerland Secondary School had an up-close look into the life of professionals of the different careers on display. WINNFM spoke with Deslyn Williams-Johnson, General Manager of the Nevis Performing Arts Center, who gave a detailed explanation of what opportunities one can have in the area of performing arts and culture. She also works closely with the Nevis Cultural Development Foundation.
A lot of times our mindset is just that it's these folklore dances, but there's more to it than that. And as the post, it features different careers in things like anthropology, a curator, heritage manager, there's genealogists, folklore instructor, music director. So, photography, there's so many areas that you can pursue in culture and the arts, and also in the performing arts, where you have the fine arts, visual arts, music, and so on and so forth. And there's several options we have here on display, sample job descriptions of what you can pursue. I have here one for a musician, for a graphic designer, for an actor, and so on. So it's just really trying to get young people to understand that there is more to culture than meets the eye. There is the preservation of culture, there is the displaying of culture or the showcasing of culture, and there's the developmental aspect of our culture as well, the integration of cultures. All of those are things that you can pursue in different areas presented here.
Williams-Johnson is also the owner and founder of House of Arts, the Academy, which is an established school on Nevis for training and certification in areas of the literary, visual, and performing arts. She said the aim is to create a holistic approach to education in the arts from training to certification.
Small school, House of Arts Academy, is located in Ramsbury side, and it's a performing arts school, basically, where the intent is to offer training in the arts. Some of the programs that are offered is theater arts for teens, for children, there's acting for adults, as well as there's Voices in Harmony Choir, which I think you, sir, are a part of, right? And so there are several, activities. We have a Facebook page. You can just type in House of Arts on Facebook and you'll see our page and what we offer. And it's really just creating a holistic environment, really, where persons are instructed in the arts, they're given opportunities to showcase in-house, also production-wise, and also in the community. And there are many people who don't know that within all of this, you can pursue theater arts, for example, at CXC level, and so on and so forth. Theater arts has three components. You have dance, you have acting or drama, and there is stagecraft. People don't know this, and there are others, visual arts as well, is involved for CXC. And so these are things that you can actually pursue, and these courses help to make you a very well-rounded individual going out into society.
WINNFM also participated in the career fair and provided students with information about the different opportunities in media, responded to questions from curious minds about the role of the media, and used the opportunity to encourage students to enter the field. The Nevis Youth Careers Expo is a youth organization and is the brainchild Gabriella Brantley. A final year law student at University College London. She reached out to her former teacher, Janelle Nisbet, who agreed to co-direct and help make NYCE a reality. Dark Brown, a final year student at Cardiff Metropolitan University, rounded off the core team, and thus NYCE was born.
In regional news, the government in Barbados is set to increase the tax on sugar-sweetened drinks, carbonated soft drinks, juice drinks, sport drinks, and more from April 1st, 2022, and local manufacturers in the country have complaints about the hike. However, the government says there will be no ease in the sugar tax. Barbados Today has more.
Manufacturers will just have to find another way to deal with the 100% increase in tax on sugar-sweetened beverages. That's the frank view of Energy Minister Kerry Simmons in response to complaints from local manufacturers that the hike from 10 to 20% will hurt their businesses. While Simmons was adamant that manufacturers should not expect changes to the tax, he however indicated that the government was prepared to have a conversation with them on how they can produce healthier options.
That is a conversation that is being had all around the world in every major capital. And I think that Barbados has now to step up to the plate. We have an economy which has had a long history with sweetened beverages, I get that. But equally, we must also now have a conversation about how we make sure that the food and beverage intake of the country is as healthy as possible. And that is something I'm prepared to have by way of a conversation.
Meanwhile, businesses have been put on notice that the days of going under the radar and not registering or paying the national insurance contributions are quickly coming to an end. Business Development Minister Kerry Simmons says officials in his ministry will be ramping up efforts to create a more enabling environment to help businesses to move into the formal sector.
When we paused the economy last year because of the COVID situation, a lot of people came forward and asked for assistance. There were very, very many of them who were not authentic or who were not able to demonstrate their authenticity because they had no official record of paying national insurance. They were not registered officially as a business entity, but hard times hit and you wanted help. And we were called upon to provide help, but you can't just play footloose and fancy free with the public purse. So it is necessary to have that official aspect to it. And we have now as a society to recognize that gone, hopefully forever, are the days where business people feel that the best route is to go under the radar and not be officially registered. You can't get benefits that way, and we really can't assist you by way of business interventions either.
We now bring you these international reports.
Smoke rises over the Jeddah skyline. The apparent target, the massive oil complex on the outskirts of the city. Saudi authorities confirmed what they called a hostile operation. Over a period of several hours, there were also reported strikes in a number of other Saudi cities. The Houthi rebels based in Yemen claiming responsibility.
Aramco facilities in Jeddah, as well as vital facilities in the Saudi enemy's capital Riyadh, were targeted with a barrage of winged missiles. Ras Tanura and Rabiq oil refineries were targeted by a huge number of drones.
The US sent what it said was a significant number of Patriot missile interceptors to Saudi Arabia earlier this month, nearly a year after an urgent request from the kingdom, which said its supply was running dangerously low. The Biden administration denied holding up the delivery amidst sharp tension in the relationship between the two countries. The Saudis are particularly angered by the administration's decision to remove Houthi rebels from its list of designated terror groups. The US State Department was quick to describe the attacks as unacceptable, as did the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who issued a statement condemning the Houthis for what he called their terrorist acts and pledging to fully support Saudi Arabia and its coalition partners in the defense of their territory. Saudi authorities insist it's life as usual, despite the flurry of attacks. And the Formula One Grand Prix, due to take place in Jeddah on Sunday, will go ahead. The organizers saying they look forward to welcoming fans to a weekend of premium racing and entertainment. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Ukrainian forces went on the offense against Russian soldiers on Friday, recapturing towns on the outskirts of the embattled capital, Kyiv. And 1 month after Russia sent a massive invasion force into Ukraine, expecting a rapid victory, Moscow signaled it was scaling back its military ambitions. The Russian Defense Ministry announced the first phase of what Russia calls its special military operation was complete, and that it would focus on completely, quote, liberating eastern Ukraine's Donbas region. Its forces remained bogged down, harried, and ambushed by Ukrainian defenders, and so far unable to claim a single major strategic objective, and now, in some places, may be forced into a retreat. A British intelligence report described, quote, Ukrainian counterattacks and Russian forces falling back on overextended supply lines has allowed Ukraine to reoccupy towns and defensive positions up to 35 kilometers east of Kyiv. One Ukrainian soldier on the front line in Bucha, about 16 miles from the capital, who gave only the name Andrei, said he enlisted immediately after Russia's invasion began a month ago.
I told my wife to grab the children and to hide in the basement, and I went to the drafting station and joined my unit straight away. And the next day, from the army base, we moved to the front line. My wife and children were under occupation for 2 weeks, but then they managed to escape through a humanitarian corridor.
Ukraine's armed forces chief of staff said Russia was still trying to resume offensives to capture the cities of Chernihiv, Sumy, Mariupol, and Kharkiv. Battle lines near Kyiv have been frozen for weeks. Failing to capture any major cities, the Russians have instead been encircling them, laying waste to residential areas and driving around a quarter of Ukraine's 44 million people from their homes. Natalia Stern, a refugee from the southern port city of Odessa, who is currently in Romania, had this to say on Friday.
Support. We need support. We believe in ourselves and believe strongly. Please support us and our children. A huge thanks for you all in advance.
You are listening to the WINNFM Headline News. Let's recap our top stories. St. Kitts Music Festival returns after 2-year hiatus.
Traffic flow temporarily changed around Patsy Aller's playing field to facilitate a PLP convention.
High school students, businesses participate in career fair on Nevis.
The government in Barbados is set to increase the tax on sugar-sweetened drinks, carbonated soft drinks, juice drinks, sport drinks, and more from April 1st, 2022, and local manufacturers in the country have complaints about the hike. However, the government says there will be no ease in the sugar tax. Internationally, Yemen's Houthi rebels have launched a series of attacks on targets in Saudi Arabia. No injuries have been reported, but oil storage facilities have been damaged in a barrage of drones and at least one ballistic missile.
Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and National Bank.
Standing in long ATM lines to withdraw cash. Use your national debit or black cards to complete a wide variety of transactions at supermarkets, variety stores, gas stations, pharmacies, and more. Shop online at the most popular websites and stores for quality brands using your national debit or black cards. And take back your time to enjoy all the things that you love to do. Remember, instead of waiting in long ATM lines to withdraw cash, use your National Bank cards today.
National Bank, always here.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive representative on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is WIN FM.
People make the world go
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drug Store's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a clear photograph and send for review. We will engage you in dialogue and then provide a quotation and link for payment. You can then pay via TDC's online payment portal. And once the transaction is complete, you'll be notified that your pickup is ready. Yes, it's that easy. Send your WhatsApp message to 662-8769 to order your medications today with City Drugstore's curbside pickup service.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. Today is Saturday, March 26, 2022, and I'm your host for today's edition, Devon Cornelius. It is 12:30 here in our studios, and for those of you who are just joining us, we have on the panel Dwyer Astefan, well-known social commentator and former government minister, and of course on the line, Peter Wickham, a renowned political scientist out of Barbados. We are speaking on commenting on the developments within the Team Unity Coalition, and the topic really on the minds of many people in the country is, will Team Unity survive? Based on all that has been said by the leaders of Team Unity, Dr. Harris, Mr. Brantley, Mr. Richards, many of their supporters, and generally people across St. Kitts and Nevis, across the Caribbean, who are looking on, are of the view that Team Unity may not make it to the next general election, which is constitutionally due in 2025. And of course, as I said earlier, there are many people that are of the opinion that the election could come rather sooner than later, but that is left to be seen. Now, before we went for the break for the headline news, I wanted to ask the question, in terms of all that is happening now within Team Unity, what does this mean for the operation of the government in terms of looking at the real issues in health, education, social development, crime and violence, and the list goes on. Peter, do we still have you on the line, right?
Yeah, I'm here, and let me just continue where I left off, because I think we got caught in this whole thing of tax policy, and the suggestion that there is income tax in some cases. While I put forward the position that, to the best of my knowledge, there wasn't. In Barbados, we pay at the highest level 45% tax on incomes. No, I don't believe that there's a similar situation in St. Kitts and Nevis, and as a result, I think that the hands of your leadership is a lot more tight because of a deliberate position that you've taken. Antigua is in a similar situation where they don't have income tax either, and they have to lean heavily on consumption taxes and also the fuel taxes, which is a reality of the problem that you're facing. But on a broader level, and in direct response to the question that you're raising, I am not convinced that governance in St. Kitts and Nevis is in peril. When I look at the situation, you're having a return of your music festival shortly, which is being executed by the Ministry of Tourism. It seems to be functioning. You had a situation in recently where you paid double salaries. Again, the management of COVID over the past 2 years, St. Kitts has actually been the top two in the region. Number one being Cayman Islands. So I would say that St. Kitts is probably the one independent state that has done best in terms of its management of the COVID situation, in terms of your limited deaths, in terms of the number of infections, and in terms of the management of it overall. Um, if we step back and we look at it objectively, I don't believe that governance in St. Kitts and Nevis has collapsed completely. Certainly, there may not be initiatives to carry it forward on the table as much as we would like the reforms.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual management of the affairs of people of St. Kitts and Nevis is not any different. And remember, we had a period under Labour coming on to the end where, the whole thing had become frankly a farce. And notwithstanding that public servants were being paid their salaries, things were continuing. And I think that we're in the same situation now where people are being paid, governance is continuing. And I don't believe that there's any person on the street that can say, look, it's because members are not going to cabinet that we can't have a music festival, that public servants are not being paid. All these things are happening. And as I said, the reality is what happens in the future and whether you want the future to be as it is currently. But, the actual function of individual ministry to education, health, and whatnot, they seem to be working.
Right. Can we get from you, Dwyer, in a nutshell, your take on how would this affect the operations of the government, that is the developments within Team Unity? And when you're finished with that, we'll go into this clip from Dr. Sharon and Gopal McNichol. Sorry. Go ahead, Dwyer.
Well, I don't know if Peter is speaking focused more on raw politics of the day rather than sustainable good governance of a country. And right now, just to interject, Pam is interviewing a candidate for number 7, which is where Dr. Harris holds the seat. A music festival is an event. Having a music festival is not a manifestation of good governance in my book. It's an event, and it's a welcome event. The people want to enjoy themselves. They've been in a serious lockdown situation, and I don't for a moment agree that St. Kitts was one of the better operated COVID locations in the region. We were told to fast and pray. We were told that we would be locked down until we were vaccinated. We were locked down when we shouldn't have been, when other places had more realistic approaches to protocols. We didn't, even now. Now, I think, when does it come into force? The 1st of April, you'll be able to come in here on a rapid test result, not administered by yourself. We've been lucky, but I wouldn't stretch it by saying we've been one of the best operated centers in terms of the COVID. In terms of health, Peter spoke about health. Our health plant here is in a mess. You can't get paracetamol at the hospital. You have to go to the husband's business of the minister to get your MRI done. The morale of the nurses is at maybe an all-time low ebb. A good quality of work resource, human resource, but poor relations with the government, very arrogant. The equipment, the tools are not in place, and there seems to be no empathy, no commitment to doing these things. And how can you, when you're prioritizing a potential $600 million for a Chinese company to build a prison, rather than these excesses you have and monies you have from the CBI program, you could put that into building a good state-of-the-art hospital and health system for the little country. And so the same CBIs that provide the double salary, it's the biggest single source of money. So if it can provide the double salary and people get the double salary and that money spins into the economy, it's not rocket science, it's not stratospheric leadership or visionary anything. We have more money in our non-tax revenue accounts than the other islands. I'm not saying the other islands are the best run in the world, but we live here, the people live here, he who feels, live it, feel it. So I really respectfully disagree with the points Peter's making. And let me tell you again about personal income taxes. People working at executive level in this country pay personal income tax, 6,500 or 7,000 in that ballpark and upwards. You pay direct personal income taxes, and everybody below them pays personal income taxes called Housing and Social Services Levy, but it's a tax attached to your income across the board.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mr. Asif. I know, as I mentioned earlier, we have this clip here from Dr. Sharon Ann Gopal McNichol, and she was speaking at the PLP convention in 2021, where she was...
I wondered if I could just make a quick clarification before we go to the clip in terms of my comments on COVID. My comments on COVID were
sure, go ahead.
The background of surveys that I have done in, I think I did 8 of the Caribbean territories. And in terms of the 8 Caribbean territories, the top performing was Cayman Islands, and below that was St. Kitts and Nevis.
What about Anguilla? What about Anguilla?
I didn't do Anguilla.
Yeah, Anguilla was above St. Kitts too.
Okay.
And I think
no, you can't say it was above because you haven't seen the data. I'm saying that this is restricted data that I have done, looking at how people rated the performance of government in terms of COVID in all of the islands.
Oh, no. I didn't see your data, but I saw the raw data for those different countries. I saw the raw data.
Okay. So we're going to go into this clip now. Dr. Sharon Ann Gopal McNichol speaking at the PLP convention in 2021. Where she suggesting that the Prime Minister should consider serving a third term. No, there were some people that were of the opinion that all of this that is happening now in Team Unity only began at the PAM convention, while there were others that said, hey, no, remember at the PLP convention in 2021, there was a lady speaking on term limits and prime ministership and leadership of the country. So let me have this clip played for you guys right now.
Now, the issue of 2 terms, I'm raising it for you to start considering it. We're a long way off from that, a good 4 years before we have to think of anything else. But I also know that I had asked Dr. Harris, seeing the condition with COVID and other things, I said, listen, if it is that it comes down to a situation that you are needed as a third term, and he quickly said to me, he said, you know, I made a commitment to 2 terms, and it is important that we honor what we say and what we do. And while I get that, you have no idea what it is like to live in a country where, I'm telling you, when my daughter goes out with her husband in the night, I'm scared. My husband and I are worried, and she's out with her husband because of crime. It scares me that I can get a call. She's in a high upscale area in some social event, and I can get a call that's it. You don't have that worry. Gosh, and this is why, Dr. Harris, I have to ask you now, you got to not be so rigidly constrained in this position of the 2 term beyond the 2 term.
It's so amazing to see my people living in harmony.
When you are gifted from God with certain special talents and gifts of leadership of this magnitude that you have displayed, you have a responsibility to understand what that means. It may mean if a country and a nation so grateful wants you to go again, you have to not rule it out. I get it. I get this business of loyalty and the business of honoring your word, but I need you to consider that. And I know that the wider society would want you to consider that as well. Another thing that I want to raise before wrapping up is the issue of, in understanding coalitions, you have to understand that there's no such thing as it is my turn. Leadership doesn't work that way. I must tell you right now, this is a gross misconception that seems to resonate in people's mind, that if we have a three-party coalition and one party got it this rounds, the next one's supposed to get it the next rounds. This is not how it works. The coalition survives on the strength of the leadership. And if the leadership is not up to the standard of what a nation needs to take it through, then you have to recognize that there is in fact no such thing as another party's turn. In that same vein, I said this the last time I spoke here, that there is no such thing as a junior and senior party in a coalition. You have 5 seats, I have 3 seats, therefore I am senior. No, it doesn't work. Without my 1, 2, you could not have gotten there. In a coalition, every single party is equal. So having said that now, I have to say, as we reach into considering a lot of things along the way, this is not the time to play political gymnastics with the lives of St. Kitts and Nevis. This is not the time for that. This is not the time for us to be talking about change unless change is going to be better for St. Kitts and Nevis.
That was just Sharon Ann Gopal McNichol, the featured speaker at the PLP convention in 2021, suggesting that the Prime Minister should consider a third term. Guys, we'll take a break to give a shout out to our sponsors, and when we come back, we will continue inside the news here on WIN FM 98.9. Peter, I want to get your take on what was said by the good doctor, and of course you, Mr. Astafar, I want to get your take, and we'll head straight to the phone lines. The phone lines are ringing off. We want to hear from our callers, their take on the developments within Team Unity. So we'll take this break and we will be right back. Stick and stay.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Shopping with TDC just got much easier. Here's how. Log on to shoptdcgroup.com. Shop at your convenience at any time, from anywhere, with your smartphone, tablet, or computer. With our safe and secure payment checkout, you choose the option to pick up in-store or have your goods delivered right to your door. It's that easy. Shop tdcgroup.com, your one-stop online store.
Shop anywhere, shop anytime, same quality you love. Now online. Shop
www.shoptdcgroup.com.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News here on WIN FM 98.9. Today is Saturday, March 26, 2022, and I'm your host for today's edition, Devon Cornelius. For those of you who are just joining us, We have in studio Mr. Dwyer Astefan, well-known social commentator, and of course we have political scientist Peter Wickham, and we are speaking on the developments within the Team Unity Coalition. Will unity survive? That's the question that is on the mind of many people in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, as I just played for you, that was the clip from Dr. Sharon Ann Gopal McNichol, and she spoke at the PLP convention in 2021. And of course, the comments that were made by her did not sit well with some of the other partners that is in Team Unity, because after that comment by the doctor, there were some things circulating on social media, and so that is where this whole talk of a possible third term came about. And of course the PAM convention helped to confirm and solidify some of the claims and the allegations that were being made that all is not well within the Team Unity administration. Mr. Wickham, can I get from you in a nutshell your take on this development, and then we'll head over to Mr. Astefan and we'll open the phone lines.
Yeah, I never heard the clip before, so I want to thank you for playing it for me. And when I listened to it, I mean, I was appalled. I don't know the lady. To be frank, I've never really heard of her, certainly as a political advisor. And I'm not sure the basis on which she assumes unto herself this much knowledge and arrogance to be able to speak to something that she's clearly unfamiliar with. There's a phrase that we use in the OECS where we talk about somebody passing their place, and she has passed her place long since. And I found the comments that she made, a lot of them were offensive. She has essentially rubbished the idea of anyone else within that group leading, and she has essentially said that the only person in that group that can lead is Dr. Harris. She presumes that the other partners are not able to produce quality leadership. And I think that that's offensive. I don't know, as I said, I don't know who she is. I don't know where she came from. I don't know her background. She's not a name that I recognize from the politics of the Caribbean. I don't know whether she's Trinidadian, on the examples that she's seen in relation to coalitions in Trinidad and Tobago. Frankly, they have been disastrous. The NAR coalition ended after one term simply because there was a breakaway and they couldn't agree going forward and trust broke down. The coalition that was the UNC and the COP has soldiered on and has now broken down as well. So I don't know the examples of the basis that she's talking about in terms of her example that she's talking about leadership and whatnot. I tend to think that there's none. And I think that she was speaking off the top of her head, and in my opinion, speaking highly improperly. I don't agree with a lot of what she said. Look, they had an agreement, and an agreement that said that Dr. Harris would have led for 2 terms, and that the group agreed that no person would serve past 2 terms. That agreement was predicated on the fact that certainly the breakdown of governance in St. Kitts and Nevis came out of a situation that Dr. Aslan is very familiar with, where Dr. Douglas did not want to leave. So one of the principles is that they're saying we will come together, we will agree on Dr. Harris' first round. Thereafter, we will put the leadership up for discussion again. She's saying rubbish that arrangement because there's only one person in the group that can lead, which is offensive to the other partners. So personally, I would have given her a dressing down. And I think that if there's anything that I can blame Dr. Harris for not doing, is for not having given her a dressing down, either publicly or privately. I don't know whether he done so privately. But frankly, it was inappropriate for her to speak in that way. I disagree with a lot of what she said in terms of her analysis of the situation. And I think that the primary factor going in is that the reason that we have a Team Unity is because we had a leader who wanted to remain in office longer than 2 terms. The idea of limited to 2 terms was part of the agreement, a central part of the agreement. And it was highly inappropriate for her to decide that she's going to take unto herself the right to advise them, rubbish that agreement because there's only one person in the country that can lead. It's absolute nonsense. And I personally think that this is where, if this is where the whole thing started, then perhaps it should have been nipped in the bud a long time ago from the time she made those comments.
All right, Dwyer?
Well, I think Peter put it quite succinctly. I couldn't do it any better myself. And she had come up, Peter, I think it is Vance Amory who had brought her to the group. She may have gone to Nevis to do some workshop or something, and she made presentations to the Team Unity group leading up to the 2015 elections. And her mantra was bottom-up development, bottom-up, which is good. But it turns out that this really has been more talk than anything else in terms of philosophical purposefulness, direction, the good governance agenda, democracy, opening up, embracing, including, unifying. All of these nice things that she and other people have said have been like urinating in the wind. Excuse the analogy. You know what happens when the wind is stiff and you do that. But Peter put it succinctly. I don't know that lady did herself or Dr. Harris any favors. In fact, that might have been the most inflammatory moment in this process that has brought the Team Unity friction to the heat point that it has reached. I think that is the thing that triggered it more than anything else. And we're unfortunate. And what he should have said right then and there. But my suspicion is that she was assigned to say that, to get a reaction. And he should have reacted and said, no, we are sticking to this, thank you for your expression of confidence or whatever. And he hasn't done so. And in fact, he has not said this publicly. He used the word publicly. The question is, have you used it privately? You haven't denied it. And you're running candidates in all of the constituencies, and all of the indicators are that you're seeking to expand your footprint across the constituencies of St. Kitts. So she was saying, she was the spokesperson for him, and very unfortunate it was, and it created a lot of pushback, primarily and initially from Pam, then from everybody else. But remember, by that time, the festering had long begun. It started in 2015. It was just a matter of containment and containment. And when he said on one occasion that nobody could hold a candle of correction to him, he was basically telling them that whatever you all think I'm doing that's not right or not the best, all you know better. So just let this thing work how it could work, for how long it could work, as loosely as it needs to work, for it just in order to survive. So the cohesion in terms of philosophy and purpose had long evaporated.
Guys, we're going to open the phone lines. We have some callers, so let's head straight to the phone lines. We take some calls.
Excuse me.
Caller, good afternoon. You are on the air.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cornelius.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Doyle and Peter Wickham.
Good afternoon, sir.
Listen to Peter Wickham a while ago, speaking that we were high up in the ranking in the COVID. Well, Mr. Peter Wickham, I don't think you live in St. Kitts and you understand what we was going through in this COVID thing. You could do all the what you say you did. I'm a victim, brother. My co-worker is a victim of what happened under this government. I lost my job after 25 years, Mr. Wickham. Have not gotten my severance money up until now from the present government. So when you're saying that we was this and was that, do you know that the lady was locked away for almost a month? Was crying blood to be released? People who couldn't get the ID when they test weeks before they could get the thing.
Results.
The government, the thing on the airport said $2 million is not been used up until now, Peter Wickham. So all the fanfare you all seen on the outside, we on the inside is suffering, and suffering badly. Now look at this, Mr. Peter Wickham. You just mentioned about the music festival. Well, Mr. Peter Wickham, the same man who next to you today on the program, he's the one who created the music festival. And the kind of backlash the government then gives to the festival, including Timothy who leave the government. Now today you're telling me about music festival. The same music festival is going to be bringing in people here who is not vaxxed, Who's really going to get the money up front? Over 50-something of the workers have not gotten the money from the government who work at TDC. So how can you dare to tell us that we rank high in this thing? You guys on the outside, I'm on the ground. Timothy and Mark and Pam has failed this country miserably.
All right.
So this issue and the whole 9 years are going round and round. We have issues, Peter, we come. Can listen to what before I go?
All right. Well, quickly, caller.
Everybody's going to be under the tent today. Vax and the unvax. You have a good day.
All right. Thank you so much, caller, for your contribution to this program. We'll take 2 more calls, and then we'll allow Mr. Wickham and Mr. Astafan to give their response. The phone lines are open. Please call us at 466-0989. Let's head back to the phone lines, and we will take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Devon. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Good afternoon.
And I'm giving God thanks for another day. Now, you see, when people allow hatred to cloud their thinking, you cannot have objective analysis. Now, Mr. Astafan mentioned about we should buy shares. Every time you drive past the Fort Thomas Hotel, people shares in there. When the government decided to hand over the shares to cable and wireless, the ordinary people who had just gotten the money were encouraged to buy shares in cable and wireless. We bought them for $5 and what they worth. What did we get? And he was the one who was trumping this thing about haircut. He knows investing in anything for the government is a non-starter. People lost 50% of their bonds, the value. And don't even mention the treasury bills. I mean, he must be honest. His analysis, while he has some good points, the truth is that everything is clouded about hatred. For Timothy Harris, you can't analyze things objectively. You cannot. You know, and so when you listen to him, you know, the tone of voice and everything, he is now promoting the same government party that put people through horrors, you know. And in fact, when it comes to the Fort Thomas Hotel, he was the minister of tourism when the last company operated that thing. I don't even think they get their severance pay yet. I mean, try and be realistic.
All right, caller.
All right, then.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution to this program. The phone lines are open, and we're taking your calls at 466-0989, 7620989, and we're also live on Facebook at WINNMedia SKN, and, of course, our YouTube channel. Let's take this final call, and we'll gather comments, and we'll head back to the phone lines. Let's take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good day to everybody. Greetings in Jesus' name to everybody. Now, the reason why we are having all this confusion is because we are disobedient to the word of God, the Holy Scriptures. That's the reason why we are having all of these confusion, and we will not ever solve our problem unless we first repent and get right with Jesus Christ. Dwyer doesn't have the answer. The government doesn't have the answer. The opposition doesn't have the answer. The experts that they're dealing with doesn't have the answer. The only answer is in the Word of God, the Holy Bible, which we reject and which we go against and which we ignore to our destruction and ruin and to our pain and suffering, and eternal hell is the end result of it all. So I just wanted to say that, and the only how we could find the blessings of God, which are the answers, is if we turn to Jesus Christ in true godly repentance and faith in his gospel message. That is only way we will find the answers.
All right. Thank you, caller, so much for your contribution to this program. Mr. Wickham, and then over to you, Mr. Astafan.
Yeah, I think the one substantive. I mean, I can't speak on matters spiritual, so I leave that one out. And I think the other comment was made to Dwyer. In terms of the COVID assessment, I can only tell you the data that I found. And the gentleman is experiencing hardship, and he's complaining of the hardship he experienced. I could tell him of experiences that people had in Barbados where I live. One lady who worked in the hotel sector for 35 years, she found herself losing her job, and she was unable to receive her severance simply because the company was not in a position to pay. And national insurance had been tapped out in terms of the number of people that they have been having to assist. And I mean, a person employed for 35 years is a lot of money to pay. She was not very happy, and she continues to be unhappy. I have people in the taxi sector in Barbados who did not earn a salary for 2 years and never received a single cent from government in support. But the reality is that it was a horrible thing, and that's the point. So while I understand and I feel the pain he's saying, I'm not saying that this is my assessment personally in terms of my own experience. I'm saying to him that we did several countries, and the countries that we studied, the highest rated was Cayman Islands, the second highest rated was St. Kitts and Nevis. I can also tell him that the worst rated was St. Vincent and Grenadines. And the irony of it is that this was, even though it was the worst rated, the government there still won an election. And also St. Vincent and Dominica were the least hard hit by the loss of revenues as a result of COVID because their reliance on agriculture was higher. In the case of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, of course, the agriculture that they rely on is not exactly legal, but that's another matter altogether. So please don't think that it is that I'm trying to come into St. Kitts and saying that, you know, I know this and I don't know this. I'm just saying to you that when you do an objective assessment, you will appreciate that while for you things may be bad, but there are other countries in the Caribbean where the situation was considerably worse. And my professional understanding of it is that, look, you know, St. Kitts didn't do that badly in terms of the management of COVID. Some of the other points that Dwyer made may very well be it. For example, the governance issue. And I agree that there has not been progress on key governance issues, but the day-to-day management of the economy, I can't say that you have done badly in St. Kitts, even though you have had a government that's clearly been distracted and disunited, certainly for the past year.
Right, thank you. Mr. Astephen?
In relation to the point on the COVID brought up by the gentleman, a very popular local person, Curtis Crook. A number of persons were terminated from companies, unvaxxed. Some of them had doctor's papers which were ignored, and they were just terminated very brutally, very muscularly. You have COVID, you can't work here. But they did not have the same COVID people coming to shop there. They had the CPL here. Some people came here in the CPL unvaccinated, that was allowed. You had functions at Christmas and Carnival just for vaccinated people. And what you know happened? Well, you had super spreaders from those because vaccinated people get it. I was one and can spread it. And rather than observe the social protocols and give unvaccinated people a fair chance to maintain their jobs and sustain their families, in my opinion, I'll use the word, they were brutally terminated. And that has created not only a lot of financial problems, you know, but a lot of health problems, particularly mental health problems. And the government sat by and let all of that happen. So a lot of people in St. Kitts right now are getting mental, emotional counseling. And I don't even want to go into some of the more gory details that some women had to endure in order to feed their families. And even if there's nothing set in the Protection of Employment Act for these people who were so cruelly terminated to get a severance, the government should have found a way from the same fund which they have there to give them something reasonable to soften the blow, because some of them have not seen a $20 of their own earning in the last 2 years. With regard to my commentary on the solar plant, the lady expressed the view that my comments are painted with hatred for Dr. Harris. That is a figment of her imagination. I don't support Dr. Harris, and I have good reason not to support Dr. Harris. But I will criticize him where I think he has gone wrong, just like I did Dr. Douglas before. And for her to suggest that it would be a losing proposition if the people of this country were to own the company that is providing the shares, a publicly registered company, just like National Bank. If she's proposing that it is a bad idea for the people of this country to own that company rather than a Swiss company which has boasted on its website that it will make massive profits from this business. Out of St. Kitts people using the sun shining down on St. Kitts, on solar panels on the ground at Needsmos, to feed that energy into the power grid for Skelec, which will in turn sell us. And as it sells us, it pays the Swiss company, which of course will put the money in Switzerland, so that the Swiss people will become wealthy from the monies we pay to make them wealthy. If my idea that is better done if the local people own it, and if it is her idea that it will fail because government's involvement in it, then she and I here clearly have an polar opposite position on this. She is more inclined to favor, I can infer, maybe wrongly, the empowerment and enrichment of those people in Switzerland rather than the people here. And it is an act of wanton disrespect, and it is a step back into an ugly past where governments in these islands are doing deals with foreigners to continue to marginalize and weaken the citizens of this country, whose job it is, whose sacred job it is, to put first. And the same principle applies to the prison, which is to be built by Galaxy, a Chinese company, which has yet to complete the construction of the prison. And Galaxy can earn a net of $400 to $500 million, receiving applications, receiving $175,000 US each, having the prison built. The prison will be owned by the government, but the net proceeds of the transactions, of all of the transactions, will be Galaxy's money. By my estimates, $400 to $500 million US dollars. And we need to be food sufficient. We need to grow more organic food. We need more food processing. We need medicinal plants to be marketed. We need research and development. We need to get into technology in a big way. We need to be doing robotics. Our education system needs to be changed. Schools need to be upgraded. We need coastal management and general land and air resiliency systems in place. And a whole heap of other things. And that money is the money that should be used to build the foundation to carry us to where we need to be. And a government that signs to do a deal like this is a government that has betrayed the people of the country. And if I sound passionate saying so, it is because I am. The passion is not hate. The passion is deep, deep regret at the betrayal that is being committed, perpetrated against the people of this country. And it has to be stopped.
Right. We have some more callers on the line, so we'll have to head back to the phone lines. Let's take this other caller. Caller, good afternoon. You are on the air.
Hi, good afternoon. Every station court is complaining about TDC. Why don't you take TDC to court? The lie is there to say whether if it's get his fair share or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, Curtis is the one that turned himself away because you have an option. They gave you an option. And if you know you have your kids them, you have to bend. You got to bend and say, well, I have my kids. I have my kids them to look after, so I'm going to take this in Jesus' name. Every time you keep telling TDC this, TDC that. And Boya Astafan, he's a crook and nothing but a crook, but a donkey crook.
Okay, that was solely the comment of the
That's
caller
okay, man. Everybody has their opinion.
and not of WinFM. I sincerely apologize for that.
No apology necessary.
Let's head back to the phone and take this other caller. Caller, good afternoon. You are on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. A question for Mr. Wickham. Do you recall the main issue of the 2015 election? Did they not surround governance issues? And do you not think that the reason the current government, is in this predicament is because it has not delivered or have not kept its promise on this good governance agenda. When you have, after all, when you have colleagues accusing each other, trading insults, calling each other greedy and untrustworthy, can there ever be reconciliation? And for that matter, even if there was, the facade they would present, I don't think the public would buy into it anymore. They won't be fooled anymore into thinking that everything is hunky-dory. And the final question, in that environment, is it not likely that voters would get fed up and say they're tired of all this dysfunction and deception and vote for the stability of one party? And in this case, it seems that the only one who can take advantage of that situation is I think it's Nevis Labour Party. Thanks.
All right, thank you, caller, so much for your contribution. We'll pause for the phone calls, and we're going to head back to Mr. Wickham and the response from Dwyer as well. Mr. Wickham?
No, I mean, the gentleman was making a political statement, and he's trying to get me to agree with him, which I'm not going to do. What I would tell him is, I don't think that the reason that Team Unity is in this position now is because of any government's agenda. I've already acknowledged that I think, and I agree with Stefan, that the government's agenda is unfortunate that it has not progressed, but they are here because there is a breakdown in trust in relation to the two parties, which have nothing to do with governance. We know the issues. The issues have been put on the table. It's about a fair share and it's about leadership, but that's not a governance issue. So that part I can agree with him on. And I also can't necessarily agree with him that the people will automatically assume that Labour is in a better position. I mean, wasn't it too long ago that we were having the same issues regarding the extent to which Labour also lacked the capacity to govern simply because Dr. Douglas was out of control and no one seemed to be able to pull him back. And I mean, Dwyer and I would agree on that as well. So listen, all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory since we're all biblical today. And I don't believe that one can, in all fairness, say that Team Unity's issues are any different to issues that Labour has faced in the past. There are any issues different to the issues of the Democratic Labour Party in Barbados, the Barbados Labour Party, the ULP in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You know, political parties have these issues, and it's a question of how we manage them. But I do agree that it is unfortunate that in all of this, we have not advanced further in relation to the government's agenda in St. Kitts and Nevis.
All right, Mr. Astafan?
No, I can't disagree with what Peter said, especially the last part. It's unfortunate that we have not advanced. I've laid that at the feet of the leaders, the people who promised it, but I also laid it at the feet of civil society. You have organizations like the Chamber, the workers' unions, which are not given much respect these days. Professional associations, the bar, medical and other people, contractors. Our people don't work together. And then you ordinary folks in the country, we tend to look for somebody to fix our problems for us. We're not as active, we're not as proactive as we need to be. But at the end of the day, the leaders promise a certain dispensation in exchange for being elected. And they prioritize, and you accept the deal, and they are expected to perform in accordance with the promise. That has not taken place. And in addition, we've seen this dismantling of the coalition that seem to be getting worse and worse. As Peter and I agree, politics is the art of the possible, and anything can happen. But in my opinion, this would be a miracle if this thing can be healed. It would be a miracle. The deep distrust, and remember, it's not just among the leaders, but among the rank and file.
Right.
It is maybe 20 years from now.
It is 16 minutes past the hour of 1. We'll take a short break to give a shout out to our sponsors, and when we come back, we will continue inside the news here on WINN FM 98.9. We have about 15 minutes left before we wrap up. We will try to take some more calls, and we will continue the program. Let me just remind callers to be short and straight to the point, and please do not call to disrespect any of the guests here on the program today. The phone lines, the numbers are 466-0989 and the 762-0989. We'll take this break and we will be right back. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the caller and do not reflect the views of WINNFM 98.9. WINNFM reserves the right to disconnect any caller who infringes the law or offends the right of any person. The station will also refuse to take any call from any person who, in WINNFM's considered opinion, is likely to expose the station to liability for statements made on the air.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
TDC Financial Services. We're here for you to help you make your dreams come true. Whether your needs are big or small, we'll support you with them all. TDC Financial Services. We are strong. TDC Financial Services. This is where you belong.
TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. We'll head back to the phone lines and we're going to take some more calls. Caller, good afternoon. You are on the air.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. How are you today? How are you?
I'm great, thanks, and you?
And also, my good friend, Mr. Dwyer, on the panel. Good afternoon to you, too. Yeah, this Bernice, the nuts lady. What happened? Don't worry about that insult. I'm so glad that you come to advise, to enlighten us with what's going on. Because we wouldn't know, we won't know 3/4 of what you say. Someone sent me a voicemail with what you're saying, and it sounds so good and clear. Because all these things happening, what will become of us later with this bank thing? There, with what we don't understand, a bank could just come a closure, bam, door close, they send the money there. We don't just run up and down town like crazy mice and butting up on one another. So it's a good, you come and educating us with what's going on. And that lady there, what she don't understand, you look like we're in Russia. Because she wants to know why Mr. Curtis coming on and complain. Is who in authority supposed to deal with that? Right? He's not getting the justice. So that's why he always calling in and trying to hear his view. Because by right, he's supposed to get their money.
All right.
And up to now, they ain't getting just who you on the courts to?
All right, thank you,
Trying
caller.
the case.
All right.
Who out there trying the case by the High Court? Who is over the High Court?
All right, thank you, caller, so much for your contribution to this program. We want to take some more calls before we wrap up. We only have 10 minutes left, so we're going to head back to the phone lines and we're going to take some more calls at 466-0989 and 762-0989. For those of you who are just tuning in, today we are speaking on the developments within the Team Unity Coalition. We're going to head back to the phone lines and we will take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You are on the air.
Mr. Cornelius, it hurts me when I listen to the lady. I'm going to say it to you, Mr. Cornelius. One of our staff from TDC took the vaccine.
Okay, caller, but
there.
before you continue, we don't want to go off topic. We don't want to be going back and forth.
I'm just saying. This is what the government is supposed to
Right,
do.
but hear me out. Hear me out. We don't want to go back and forth between you and other callers. We're speaking about the team unity developments, and we don't want to go there. So please, we don't want to go there. We want to stay on topic. So we're gonna have to end this call with you, and we're gonna take some more other callers. Please call us at 466-0989 and the 762-0989. We're not focusing on that right now. What we're talking about is the developments within Team Unity and the possible outcome of that. Please call us at 466-0989 and 762-0989. We have no calls right now, so we want to get some closing comments from yourself, Mr. Astafan, and of course you too, Mr. Wickham, on the topic at hand: will Team Unity survive? Mr. Wickham?
Yeah, I mean, in final thing, I've appreciated the opportunity to interact with you guys regarding the situation in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think that it has been novel, the whole idea of a union between the three parties in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think there was considerable potential for success, and I do believe that it's reached a point where the future doesn't seem particularly bright. But I take a lot of confidence in the fact that we both agree that politics is the art of the possible, and Dr. Harris has landed on his feet once before. It's possible that he would do it a second time, although this time it does seem as though it will be harder for him to do. But I think that the experience has been an important lesson for us in the idea of coalition building, if I would take a step back and look at the issue regionally. And I certainly consider to be a student of politics, and I think that I've learned a lot from this experience, and I add it to the other coalitions I've seen in operation, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana and so on. And I think that we understand a lot more about the way that coalitions work, the importance of trust, the importance of confidence, and also the importance of performance as we go forward. And I'm anxiously awaiting today's presentation by Prime Minister Harris, and also to see what the next few weeks evolve to be.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Astafan.
Yeah, I agree with Peter to the extent that this is basically uncharted waters, and we have to see how it works out. From where we sit, it doesn't look particularly cheerful for Timothy Harris. We're dealing with the art of the possible here. I personally believe that he is somewhat cornered. He's going to try to splash out and maybe run in more constituencies. I think that will only offend Pam more and deepen the divisiveness among them. And the question is when the election is going to be held. The PAM candidate for number one just had a baby, so I don't imagine they'll want to have an election right now. I don't know that it would be in anybody's interest, any of the party's interest, to have an election right now. People want time to prepare and so forth.
Right.
And again, this speaks to the point of the Prime Minister having the power to call an election, which is something that they had advocated they would put an end to by constitutional change, fixed date elections for both federal and Nevis Island level. And they haven't even discussed that any further since that first foray into the topic. I see hope out of all of this for the country, but the hope is only going to come from citizens making sure that they are aware of the issues. They're not intoxicated by the color of the shirt or by the offer, whether it is of money or given a paper for a piece of land that never exists, that you'll never sleep on or walk on, or the offer of some favor that is sitting somewhere up there close to the moon that will never land on the earth of St. Kitts. And don't allow yourselves to be deceived. We need, if this country is to go anywhere and to sustain itself as a decent, successful and progressive country, we need to get away from the politics of transacting and get to the politics of aspiration, values, good governance, ending corruption, transparency, everybody will be better off for it. Everybody will be better off for it. If what we have continues, it's going to be incredibly bad 5-10 years from now. It already is. Because the value systems have collapsed. The institutions of government have been mongrelized and vulgarized by the present administration. And all of that was happening even before the visual signs of the collapse were coming. But they were part of it because everybody was doing as they like. I mean, you have an assistant registrar of the court, somebody who helps the registrar of the Supreme Court, a lawyer, addressing a political meeting 2 nights ago. Now, I'm not saying a public servant cannot have political affiliations, right of association. The Natta case told us that. But that principle does not apply to every public office. If you are a quasi-judicial, occupy a quasi-judicial post, if you are a registrar or an acting registrar, and you have to get the blessings of the Judicial and Legal Services Commission to occupy that position, then that is a position, in my opinion, that tells you, yes, you can back a party, but you should not be on a platform haranguing people for a political party. It brings the politics too close to the judiciary. And without that separation of powers, the democracy and the institutions collapse. And I'll tell you this finally, speaking about collapse. This administration has done a lot to worsen the collapse, the threat of collapse to Social Security. And the other institutions like the Development Bank, which owes Social Security $135 million, SCASPA, which owes nearly $100 million, NHC, you name them. Social Security has continued to be the blood bank for when they want money, the piggy bank for them, and Social Security right now is fighting off the next stage. And the next stage is illiquidity, inability to meet its demands. So what would happen in 5 to 10 years from now? And it's the most important financial institution in the country. What is happening there is a result of bad governance, quite apart from the fact that the people who are governing the country now are fighting each other. This is a combination that cannot be good for the country and needs to be changed. Whatever combination comes out of the election must be one that is better than this. And this is where I think the Labour Party can play an important part in helping to get the country on a good footing.
Right.
Not winner take all, not selfish, not business as usual, but something different under a new leadership.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution to this program today. And thank you so much, Mr. Wickham, for accepting our invitation to join us here on Inside the News. It was a very healthy discussion, speaking on the developments within Team Unity and what one can expect in the next, well, over the period of time. Of course, this is the question that is on the minds of many, many people. Will Team Unity survive with all that is happening? With public statements by the leaders within Team Unity, Dr. Harris, Mr. Brantley, Mr. Richards. This is the concern amongst many people across the length and breadth of St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course our nationals who are residing overseas. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us on today's edition of Inside the News, and I hope that for future discussions that we can have you back to talk on different topics of national interest, and of course your professional advice, Mr. Wickham, in terms of the political landscape in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the Caribbean region. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we're going to end this edition of Inside the News. Until next time, you guys stay safe. We are going to end this program right now. You guys take care.
Okay.
The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the caller and do not reflect the views of WINNFM 98.9. WINNFM reserves the right to disconnect any caller who infringes the law or offends the right of any person. The station will also refuse to take any call from any person who in WINNFM's considered opinion is likely to expose the station to liability for statements made on the air.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the